Today I'm going to share with you why you need ND filters for your Osmo Pocket, the best ND filters to get, and how to use them. If you wave your hand really fast in front of your face like this, you'll notice motion blur in between your hand movements. Motion blur is natural. So how do you replicate motion blur in camera? Shutter speed controls the amount of motion blur in a video. Lower shutter speeds will give you more motion blur, and higher shutter speeds will give you less motion blur. You will also notice that lower shutter speeds will make the video brighter, and higher shutter speeds will make the video darker. So which shutter speed should you set? To figure out the correct shutter speed, you need to use the 180-degree rule. And the 180-degree rule states that your shutter speed should be set to double your frame rate. So on the Osmo Pocket, I currently have the video resolution set to 4K, and these frame rates are available. To achieve the right amount of motion blur for these frame rates, these are the shutter speeds you should be using. Anything below these values will make your video too blurry. Now when you are outside in bright sunlight, set your ISO to 100 and set your shutter speed based on the frame rate you picked. I am using a frame rate of 25, so my shutter speed should be set to 50. But now the exposure is way too bright. The only way to darken the exposure is to significantly increase the shutter speed, but then you're going to lose out on the motion blur. So how do you solve this? The solution is to use ND filters, and I got the Bright Day ND filter pack from Freewell. ND filters are like different strengths of sunglasses for your Osmo Pocket. They reduce the amount of light entering the lens, which means you can maintain a low shutter speed even in bright sunny weather. So how do you know which filter to use? Well, I'm going to show you a free app which automatically calculates the correct ND filter you need to use in your given situation. Go to the Play Store and download the Exposure Calculator app. Open the app and select Third Stop. This replicates the options you see in the Osmo Pocket exposure settings. The first thing you need to do is set your current exposure. To figure out the current exposure, assuming you are outside in bright sunlight, set the ISO to 100 and increase the shutter speed until the video is evenly exposed. Now you have all the information to fill out current exposure. The aperture of the Osmo Pocket is 2.0 and the shutter speed is set to 1/2000 and the ISO is 100. Now you need to figure out the new exposure so you know which ND filter you need to use. The goal is to get the shutter speed down to 50 based on the 180-degree rule. The aperture and ISO is the same as before. Now keep scrolling ND filter to the right until the minimum shutter speed is above 50. 1000 is above 50. 500 is above 50. 250 is above 50. 125 is above 50. 60 is above 50. But 30 isn't. So scroll back and the correct ND filter to use is number 5. This is the closest you can get to 1/50th shutter speed. So what is ND filter 5? ND 8 reduces 3 stops of light, also known as ND filter 3. ND 16 reduces 4 stops of light, also known as ND filter 4. ND 32 reduces 5 stops of light, also known as ND filter 5. And ND 64 reduces 6 stops of light, also known as ND filter 6. This means I need to apply ND 32 to the Osmo Pocket, because this is ND filter 5. Now if I scroll to 1/60th, then it will be properly exposed. Before you can see no motion blur in the video, and after you can see motion blur in the video. You now know how to use ND filters. And the cool thing about the Freewell ND filters is that it has a built-in polarizing filter. So if you line up the white lines, it can hide the reflections in the water, and it can also darken and saturate the sky to make it look less washed out. That's it. You now know how to use ND filters for your Osmo Pocket. If you want more information on the Freewell ND filters, then check out the link in the video description.